Yep.
And we're live.
All right, we're live.
Look at that.
What's up, Jimmy?
Hey, how's it going, Nick?
Thanks for being here today. Today is September 9th, 2016, and your album just released today, yeah?
You did, yeah.
Uh, you can get it on iTunes. You can grab it off of, can you get it on your website? You have it listed there, I'm sure.
Not yet. I have to do that today.
And on your Facebook, I've seen lots of links, so you can check it out.
Lots of links.
And you just had a great gig this week. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
I did, yeah. I did my CD release at Smalls. It's a great time. It should be up in the archives in a few weeks. But yeah, it was a great crowd. I got to play a lot of stuff off my album, plus some other stuff that I haven't played in a while. Sextet, so it's the same band as the album. So it's Andrew Gould on alto, Jimmy McBride on drums, Peter Slavov on bass, Tim Basin on guitar, and Tuomo Zutalo on piano. It was a good
Yeah,
time.
yeah, it was great. I mean, I was there, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you guys sounded great, and it was a good turnout. So really happy for you.
Yeah, I was
Um,
very pleased.
Awesome, man. And you just got back. You did some gigs with Andrew out in Michigan. Where did you
Yeah,
play?
I did a few gigs. I did a gig out in Cliff Bells and out of Burt's out in Detroit. We're actually gonna go back in February. We're gonna do like a little Midwest tour. So still setting that up. Uh, but yeah, I mean, it's a good time. People are nice out there. It was well received. So
Excellent.
yeah,
That's great, man. And if people haven't noticed, it's been climbing up the radio charts. You might hear it on the radio. You turn on your
yeah, I've
local
noticed that as
station.
well.
So
I'm gonna shout out to Outside In Music for their awesome PR team.
yeah, things are moving on, but it always comes back to having a great product. So uh, there
Appreciate
you
that.
go. Good release, and it makes it easy. So Jimmy, what inspired the album? Can you kind of talk a little bit about the theme of it and kind of the tunes on it and how you
Yeah, well,
came?
so I had been planning on making. So the name of the album is Arrhythmia, and the title track is also Arrhythmia, obviously. And I actually started writing that song back in my sophomore year of college, and it was just the bass line and all that stuff. And I named it Arrhythmia because I have this heart condition. I actually share it with trombonist Joe Beatty.
Hmm.
Um, but so it caused my heart to have an arrhythmia. So I wrote this tune and then I named it Arrhythmia, and I've kind of been workshopping that tune for the better part of a decade. And but so I've been wanting to make an album, but I didn't have a lot of other music that I thought it fit with. I was writing a lot of tunes for school and a lot of standard E tunes, and so when I moved here, I decided that I wanted to do an album, and then school got in the way, and then work gets in the way, and
Hmm.
eventually it was this time, and so I wrote like a whole new suite of music, kind of that was a little more modern, which I didn't actually know I wrote like that until I really sat down and like tried to start writing, and it just kind of came out. So a
Hmm.
lot of it's like real, it's modern, just kind of very like not swingy kind of music, but I guess that's kind of where I live now. But yeah,
Nice.
I wrote the album, and I had some tunes. I had them just kind of like sitting around for a while. I played like I don't know, like to maybe 10 or 11 gigs with it, and then I just decided like it's time. So I booked the date for the studio,
Hmm.
and then just went at it. It was a super smooth recording session. Everything went really well. For a first album, it was really smooth. It was really easy.
Nice.
Yeah.
So how did you come to the instrumentation?
Well, so I mean, I went to school with all these people, and I've always kind of shied away from being the only horn player,
Hmm.
just because trombone is. I mean, trombone is. I mean, it's a beautiful instrument, but it's not always. It's not. It doesn't always have that pop. So I want to get contrast, and I want to be able to. And also the way I write is I write a lot of counter melodies and stuff.
Hmm.
And so all the people on my album, well, most of the people on my album were people I went to school with, and I've known for a long time. I just thought this worked. Andrew is like one of my best friends, and so is Tim. And Andrew, I mean, they're both amazing. That instrumentation, and a lot of my music is just it's more of a it's not like a through composed kind of thing. It's more of like a template for blowing.
Hmm.
So I figured, if we can get super intense, why not have people that can, really take it there.
Sure.
So that was the goal, and they're all pretty open tunes, like
Hmm.
like very nice for kind of the thought.
So, so speaking, that's kind of what the band's about. So, what about you in particular? Who are some of your big influences that you like to draw from?
Oh man, well, so the first the first jazz album I ever listened to was a compilation CD, and I was 15,
Hmm.
maybe 15. I was driving, but I wasn't driving well, so I would say it was like 15 or 16. Um, and Yeah, it was a compilation album I bought at a Barnes and Noble in Michigan, and it was like a jazz compilation. And I heard there was this Bill Evans version of Green Dolphin Street,
Hmm.
and I checked that out, and I really liked that. And I like did some digging and found out where that came from. The first album that I really got into was Sunday at the Village Vanguard, his album, and then Waltz for Debbie. That whole disc set. And from there it went. I mean, it was pretty straightforward. From there, I went to Miles. I did, there was, obviously like kind of blue, and then, but then, from there I started. I was never really a trombone like listener.
Hmm.
I was it was a lot of piano and saxophone. I mean, obviously there's JJ, but I wasn't like a big JJ person, and so for a while, from 16 to probably like 20, I struggled with finding trombone players that really I really identified with, and the first two were Frank Rosalino and Carl Fontana because they played
Hmm.
a little more. I mean, the sound isn't, no one has JJ's sound, but as far as like the technique and like just being able to get around the horn,
Sure. Yeah.
those
Totally.
two. And so I had my Carl and Frank phase, and then I moved here, and everyone was playing like Elliot Mason. So I looked up with him, and I checked out a lot of his music, and he lives right down the street from where I live, so he's always been he's around, and we hang out and we play, and the stuff he plays is just so interesting. And so like and actually, it's a funny story. A few years ago, um, I was really struggling on trying to figure out where I fit in as a trombone player because I wasn't executing all the things I wanted to play, and I didn't really have a sort of like a solid jumping off point for where to start. There were tempos that were tough for me,
Hmm.
um, and I started checking out Elliot Mason, and it really changed everything. His approach to the horn, he was telling me his influences, and they're the same. He didn't really listen to a lot of JJ or Curtis. He was all about Frank and Carl. And so when we started playing together, like just in lessons or just hanging out or whatever, it really kind of clicked for me. Like, oh, like this is how this works, and this is how you make this happen. So I kind of took what he did and went a little bit different direction. I'm not quite as angular or quite as angry, but you know,
Uh-huh.
works. This technique works, and that really has changed a lot about my playing. It's really opened me up to being able to do a lot more acrobatic or like less trombone stuff. More like
Sure. Yeah, yeah.
playing. Yeah,
Nice. So let me take a couple of steps back. You said you grew up in Michigan. Where in Michigan
I
did you
did
grow
grow
up?
up. I grew up in Grosse Pointe. It's a suburb just north of Detroit. Um,
And
so
what was the jazz scene like there growing up?
well, Grosse Pointe's not a great scene. I mean, they have a better scene now. Um, Mac Avenue Records is located there, and that's where the Dirty Dog and stuff is. But growing up, it was mostly Detroit, and but I didn't really start playing jazz till I was maybe I started playing jazz when I was like 13 with this youth orchestra,
Okay.
but I didn't really start getting on the scene until college. And it's just it's a town, it's a city. They have good players and they have not so good players.
Hmm.
But the whole thing in Detroit is everyone's really nice until you get on the bandstand, and everyone is, they're hard asses. They're like, this is what you got to do. Like, you're not doing it right. This is how you got to do it. No one's like, oh, you sound great. Like, oh, it's so great. So, and it's all about swinging.
Hmm.
no mixed meter. There's no modern jazz there. So I really got my act together as far as playing tunes and
Hmm.
swinging really hard and getting that swing feel and all that sort
Yeah,
of stuff there.
I mean, there's a great tradition of
There is a
Detroit
great tradition.
musicians.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Brian Croslino was from there.
yeah. Curtis.
Chambers. Yep, Curtis PC is from there. Max Roach is from there. Tommy Flanagan
Mhm.
is from there.
Barry Harris, right?
Larry Harris, and I think Ron Carr is from there.
Yeah. So
Maybe not.
a big tradition from there. So that's cool. So
It's
you went
a
to
big tradition.
University of Michigan. You went to, right?
I went to the University of Michigan. Yeah.
And what was that like?
It was cool. It was I tell a lot of people this. It's not a conservatory.
Hmm.
It's a They say it's like a conservatory, and to a certain extent, I mean, they have a conservatory vibe. They have a separate school music, not attached to any of the campus, but it's a Big Ten school, so it's a Big Ten time. You get there and it's a lot of partying and you
Hmm.
see a lot of people. There's 40,000 people at the school, so you make a lot of friends. You don't meet most people you go to school with. But I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. I wasn't ready to be in New York when I started college, and I think I may have even burnt out if I had come here too quickly.
Sure. I think
So it was,
I think that's something a lot of students, people studying jazz have uh, struggle with it, whether they should come to New York or not, and
right.
when they should do it. And so, do you have what are your thoughts on it? I mean, you took your path, but
Yeah. Well, I
why
mean, for me, it was that way. It kind of depends on if you feel like you're ready. I think because like a lot of times you can make those decisions without being certain, and
Mhm.
and it's a risk. It's always a risk. But as far as like you have to know that you're ready and you have to know that like this is what you want to do. And for me, going to a regular, like large state school beforehand was absolutely the right choice. I was able to, like get some of the kinks out of my playing without, you know, having to really expose myself to like the scene here. And
Mhm.
so when I came to New York, I mean, I wasn't great, but I felt like I was ready to start working, and I felt like I was in an acceptable place to be seen on the scene, I guess. Um, but I mean, my advice to students and stuff is just to, like weigh your options and see how you're feeling. If you're not sure, if you're like, I'm not sure if I'm good enough, I'm not sure if I want to be in that situation, I want to be with all those people, having to commute on the train and stuff, then maybe it's not time yet. But you'll know when you know that it's time to go, and you'll kind of have exhausted your options, or maybe you're the best player at whatever city you're in,
Mhm.
and then if you're ready to make that move, then I can't recommend it enough. It's kicked my ass into being a much better
Yeah.
player than I used to be.
No,
So
yeah, I hear you. I think for me it was the same thing. I had the same moment. Like it was just one of the on a gig and just looked over and just kind of like, oh, this is it. I'm done. I got to get out of here.
I'm done. Gotta get out. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is your first album as a leader, and just kind of thinking back to the whole process from recording and then kind of figuring out what you're going to do with the release and everything. What were some of the challenges that you faced, and how could you offer some advice to somebody that's trying to start up their own group or write their own music?
Man, well, for me, um, there were a lot more challenges than I expected, and then the places where I expected it to be challenging, it didn't always necessarily line up. Like there were some things that I thought were going to be really tough, and it turned out to be super easy. And then there were some things that I thought were going to be really easy. It turned out to be really, like just like little snags here and there.
Mm-hmm.
But first thing I can say for me was setting deadlines important. Um, you know, I wasn't sure I was ready to. I mean, I wanted to record, but I was just always on the fence. Like, oh, am I ready? And then one day, I just, called up the studio. And I was like, put this day down. You I want to record. And then they were like, okay, so you have to leave, a half, like half of the pay as a
Right.
deposit. And that was it. I paid the money, and then it was locked in. And that really forced me to get everything like really moving towards, and it wasn't necessarily an organic thing. I wasn't necessarily at that point. Like I was sure, but you always have questions, but you give yourself deadlines, and then when that day shows up, you just better be ready. And that
Right.
really helped me. As far as leading a band, when the musicians here, everyone's so professional and everyone's so good that it's not like, I have to hold their hand. If anything, they have to hold my hand, like through the whole process of like rehearsing music and stuff.
Right.
But as far as, getting ready to do an album and getting ready to start your own band, make sure, the number one thing I can say is, make sure that you respect the people that you play with, and then make sure they're also cool enough that you can hang out with them and that they're, that you're comfortable with them, because it translates on stage and on sessions and when you're playing. Like if you're not super comfortable with someone, or you don't feel super comfortable with someone, even if you're, obviously it takes time, but the better friends you are, the better the vibe is as far as the music goes.
Yeah, that's a great
And
point.
yeah, eventually you're going to go on tour with these people. So think about if you want to be stuck in a van for 18 hours with these people. And then, as far as recording goes, recording was really easy. I expected recording to take a lot longer. I booked a day at the studio, which is like 10 hours. I finished in 7. We got 8 tracks done in 7 hours, and then, I had time, and that was like with lunch. Like we had lunch, and that was super easy. That was like a no hassle kind of thing. And then mixing was pretty easy, as far as finding someone to do it and someone I trusted and doing it. Like the steps were easy. The hard part was really finding time to make sure these things got done. Because you make an album and you think, oh, I'm gonna make an album, but you also forget that you still have the exact same life you had going on, but now you just have a bunch of extra crap to do.
Right.
So
a bunch of extra stuff.
So just to find time to make these things happen, especially mixing, because you're gonna want to be there for the first few days when you mix, and to devote 8 hours of time or 6 hours of time, a few days out of a week, something that that you haven't had to do before it's tough to find the time. And actually, I did the first mixing session with my mixer, and then I gave him the levels for one song, and I was just like, just go. Just do it and send it back to me, and I'll just tell you what I like. And that became a lot easier. But finding the time is definitely hard. And then also I guess the label helped me out with this, but if you were to do a self-release, I guess finding the motivation to really like close everything up and finish up.
Sure. Yeah.
Is really tough. Like you have this product, you have it all recorded and mixed, and then like you have it mastered. And then like to find the motivation to be like, all right, I'm gonna release on this day, so this is the next step, like printing, and PR and like digital distribution, all that stuff. Like, you guys take care of that, and that was a huge weight off my shoulders. But even me just like deciding, like trying to pick a date, like that took us, like I wasn't sure when. And then the money, obviously, to record and all that stuff. You have to budget yourself, and so that's just one more thing.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes into it, but I think it went pretty smoothly for you, though. Yeah, awesome, man.
It was a great experience. It's been super easy. Outside In has been super helpful.
Oh well, I'm glad. I'm glad it was easier in at least some of the ways.
Yeah, I've been telling a lot of people have been asking me who they should release with if they do their album, and I've been telling them, you guys, it's been
cool.
You've been around to help me out a lot, and like that's like first album, I don't necessarily want a studio head or someone who is not interested at all,
Right.
Like it's we're friends, and you take an interest in your projects, and that's super important.
Nice. Well, let's keep moving forward. And so, what's coming up for you? You've got some other projects. You've been recording.
I said we had that tour coming up in the winter, but I've also been wanting to do. Like I don't know, like maybe 4 months ago, me and the piano player and I from my group, we played this gig down at Bam Cafe, just duo, and I don't know if you've heard. Those Andy Laverne. The Steeplechase records. I think they're Steeplechase or Crisscross or something. It's like Andy Laverne, the piano player, and he does like duo albums with like he did one with Conrad, and
oh yeah,
it was interesting. Yeah, And so I've kind of always wanted to do like a duo, like just like a trombone piano
Hmm.
sort of thing. And I mean, it's not going to be a big thing. I'm not sure if I'll release it as an album yet, or is it just like just tracks every now and then and do video recording. But I've always wanted to do that, and I know so many incredible piano players in the city that I'd like to do like maybe one or two tunes with each piano player, and you know, it'll probably be mostly standards. I'll probably just do a few recording sessions here and there.
Hmm.
But that's next, and then obviously working on the next album is I've taken a break from writing, so
Gotcha.
it's time to start. Just
Open
get
that
back
can
to
of
work.
worms again.
Yeah, time to go back to work.
And what you do some interesting projects outside of the jazz world. You've been doing some other
I,
stuff, yeah?
I do, yeah. I've been working a lot with this producer, this hip hop producer named 88 Keys.
Okay.
He produces West, and he did Most Def. He did Black on Both Sides, or he did a lot of that stuff. And I actually met him on the train like 4 or 5 years ago. He was just like, "Is that a trombone?" I was like, yeah. And he's like, "I need a trombone player." So I've been working with him for a while, and you know, um, we've been doing work with Mac Miller and like Alicia Keys and all that stuff, and that's been pretty good.
Nice.
There's a funk band. I'm in a few funk bands. The Uptown Party Down. Go check it out. Um, it's a 9 piece or 10 piece. I don't know how many people are. It's a lot, and uh, that's been keeping me busy. It's like just like a straight funk kind of heavy funk band. Um,
How have you found like your background going, to Michigan and then to Manhattan School translate into that world? Did that help you, or did you have to kind of like
yeah,
figure out?
honestly, like, the more you know, the easier music is. Like I mean, the more you know, like the more flexible you can be. So I would have to say that like just going to Michigan and being a party school, and then going to Manhattan School of Music, and that being like a really it's a very it's like a conservatory,
Right.
and being disciplined. It actually worked out pretty well, because all these shows, the funk shows we do and all that other stuff, it's like for regular people. It's not for jazz eclectics and stuff. It's for regular people that want to dance and drink and hang out. And I know all about dancing and drinking from Michigan. And then the music part, you just have to know what people like. And the more exposure you have to learning about music, the more sense you get about how to relate to people, because I mean that's what music is about. It's about just relating to people and making them feel something.
Totally. So, do you have any other thoughts or advice you want to leave with any students or?
Yeah, I guess you know the first thing I can say is that if you're going to go out and play your own music or someone else's music, or jam sessions, or wherever you're playing, especially in New York, but I mean this goes anywhere. This goes for anywhere. Um, I know you want to get up there. Everyone always wants to get up there and play everything they know all at once, um, and it's unappealing and gross. Don't show off. Just do you, because eventually you get to the point where technique and range and all that stuff, it's not important. It's just about people hiring you for what you bring to the table. So really figure out what you're all about, and try to showcase that. And obviously that doesn't mean don't change who you are if you're not happy, or if you're growing. You're constantly growing, so you're always changing. But just know what you do, and be true to that. Don't try to be something you're not. And and that's kind of the way that you'll be. I find that that's the way that you can be happiest, doing what you do. If you're not true to yourself,
It's
and not doing what you want to do, then you're not you're not being honest with
Yeah, that's a
yourself.
great point. That's a great
Yeah.
point. How did you kind of come to your own uh, decision about that for yourself? Because I know for me it's still an ongoing process, and trying to figure
Well,
that out.
I mean, like I'm not any further along than you are at figuring that out, but I think it's just a lot of time. Especially as you get older, you start seeing generations of younger cats coming through, and you see the similarities in what they're all trying to do,
Hmm.
And then, you know, years after, maybe a year or two after has passed, and they're completely different, and it feels much more honest. And so for me, you know, I always wanted to be a saxophone player. I guess, you know, that was like the instrument that I wanted to play in fifth grade, and we ran out, so I played trombone. And so for a long time, I wanted to play fast. I wanted to play high and loud, and trombone isn't always that. But I was trying so hard to do those things that I kind of lost sight of what a pretty instrument is. And then, so when I started to really just focus on what I wanted to do and the music I wanted to make, it's actually funny because all that stuff, all the stuff that I initially set out to do, it kind of came to me naturally. And but it wasn't because I used to try to force it all the time. Like, this is what I want to do. Is I need to do this. I need to play faster. I need to, you know, tempos. I need to be able to play Cherokee with, like, you know, and it never. I was always like forcing it. And then when I just found my influences and I found what I liked and I figured out, you know, what worked for me, everything kind of opened up. And I know that, you know, trombone isn't saxophone. You know, I will never play as fast as Johnny Griffin. I'm not going to be trained. I can't just, you know, notes and notes and notes. And that also forced me to think about the right notes. And that was like a really powerful thing, you know, like, don't play so many notes, just play as many as you need to say what you need to say and make sure they're all right.
That's a great point.
Yeah. So I mean, you know, and obviously we're still figuring it out. You know,
Yeah, it's an ongoing, lifelong kind of journey.
trombone is a difficult instrument to say the least.
It's true.
So
is there anything else you wanna add on? Anything coming up you wanna
yeah,
plug?
just make sure you're having fun doing what you're doing. You know, that's what's important. Because I became a musician to not be a businessman, to not hate my job.
Sure. Yeah.
So if it starts feeling like work, you know, I mean, it's gonna feel like work sometimes, but for the most part, you know, going to work, I get to go play music, and that's better than anything I could ever ask for.
Well, I think that's a great place to kind of wrap up. So thanks, Jimmy, for talking today, and
thank you guys for making my album release so easy.
I'm glad it turned out well, and just everybody keep your eye on the charts, because I know he's getting a lot of airplay. So turn on that radio, and you'll hear Jimmy's album, and you make sure you grab it either on iTunes or wherever your favorite downloading place might be.
Yeah.
And stay tuned to Jimmy's website, see where he's playing. February, you said you're going to Michigan again?
Yeah, February. I'll be lining some stuff up in the fall, some other places, so keep an eye out for that.
Yeah, so a bunch of things coming up for his band. Well, thanks a lot, Jimmy, and we'll see you around soon.
Thanks, Nick.
Yeah, man.
All right, bye-bye.
See ya.